The key to your prayers finally being answered is that you're not asking from a place of ego. You're not asking from a place of self-aggrandizement. You're not asking from a place of trying to bolster the thing that is actually separating you from Hashem. And that's why Hashem's not giving it to you. It's not that Hashem doesn't want you to have, let's say, money to support yourself or to have a nicer home. It's that he understands that what you want is to be close to him. And at the same time, you're praying for a nicer home. And he knows that nicer home is going to bring you further away from him. So how is he going to answer your meaningful prayer, which is to be close to him, and then also give you the bigger home? So therefore, Rav Nachman is teaching for you to get your prayers answered, that you need to first come to a place of humility. Humility means I'm praying to Hashem and asking to be close to him. That's what it means to be humble. When you realize that everything comes from Hashem, that is humility. Humility doesn't mean you don't have anything. Humility means you know that everything that you have comes from Hashem. So therefore, what's the greatest blessing? There's only one, to be close to Hashem. And then everything comes from that. I remember somebody came to Rav Kramer when he was here last, and this should be a refuah shlema for him. And he said, bless me with parnasa and this and that. You know, you guys know what community I'm from. So he said, I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to bless you. You should be close to Hashem. And then if you're close to Hashem, you're going to have spiritual blessing. You're going to have physical blessing. You're going to have all of it. And he's like, no, but give me the parnasa. Bless me with the parnasa. So, but this is a real thing, you know? When you're close to Hashem, you now become a vessel for everything because he is the source of all of it. So now Rav Nachman's teaching, how can you actually access within yourself humility, right? You can hear about humility, but how do you actually become humble? Rav Nachman says, when you learn Torah b'koach, right now, let's say half of you guys had bad days on paper, okay? You're not feeling it right now, but you're here anyway. You sucked it up and you came here to learn because you know it's important. That's called learning Torah b'koach. That when you learn, even though you don't feel like it, or you had a rough day, or you had a rough moment, or you just don't want to learn right now, and you learn anyway, that's called learning Torah b'koach. And in a very deep spiritual way, you're actually breaking the klippas around your heart. You are nullifying your ego by doing that. That's one. Also, when you when you learn out loud, you're not just learning, but there's a voice. There's a loud voice you're hearing. When you hear that loud voice is penetrating your heart. That's also learning b'koach. That also humbles you. Lastly, is that you learn with enthusiasm, with joy, with excitement, even and especially when things are not going the way you'd like them to. All of these are breaking your ego. We're not going to get into why now. There's many Torahs that deal with this. But suffice it to say for now that this is what happens, okay? Now that you're humble from learning Torah b'koach every day, so now when you come to pray to Hashem, that humility that you bring to pray with, you're going to be able to ask for things that are going to bring you closer to Hashem. Hashem, I want to see you in my workplace. Hashem, I want to see you in the fact that I'm not making enough money to support my family. I want to see you in the fact that my wife keeps rebuking me. I want to see you in the fact that I can't afford my kids' education. That is called praying from humility because you realize that when you get the answer to that, you're going to have everything. Like we're going to see in a moment that when Yaakov and Esav saw each other, and Yaakov represents the ability to see Hashem in everything, to feel that closeness, because he always is looking for Hashem, that when he sees Esav, he lived the greatest secular life. He did whatever he wanted to do. He engaged in every taiva. He was the king of New York City, okay? Except he lived wherever he lived, in Edom, Israel. And now he sees Yaakov after all of this, and he said, you went that way, you went to go close to Hashem, and you suffered tremendously in your life for it. I went this way because I didn't want to go through that, and look how much I have. Yesh li Rav, I have a lot. We're going to get more into Yesh li Rav in another Torah, but I have a lot. So Yaakov says, Nebuch, I have kol, I have everything. Yeah, you did whatever you did, and it doesn't even matter how much you have. Because as long as you don't feel close to Hashem, you don't have everything. But when you feel close to Hashem, you have everything. Cool. This is the reason why we say Birkat HaMazon, which is the only bracha that's deraita. It's the only blessing that you have to make according to the Torah. Besides blessing on the Torah, maybe. So we say Bakol Mikol Kol. That Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, Bakol Mikol Kol. So we see that the thread, which is the uniqueness, the essence of those three original Jewish people who is now imprinted in all of our souls. What does it mean to be the children of those people? Kol, that you have everything. What is the gematria of Kol? 50. What do we say 50 was? The Nun. What is Nun? Humility. What does humility do for you? It gives you clarity and experience of the light of Hashem in your life. That is Kol. And then when you have that, you have everything. That even if you're sick, chas v'shalom, and even if you have terrible shalom bayit, chas v'shalom, even if you have trouble making money, chas v'shalom, you have everything. You have everything. Many people think freedom means everything is going the way I'd like it to. That's freedom. I came to America to live the American dream, that I'm going to make as much as I need to so I can work for myself, and I'm going to do this, and now I'm going to be free. You're not free. You know a person who's free? That he can, on paper, look like a slave, and inside his mind, he's completely free. That is the freest person. That's the whole reason why the Levi'im, when they were in Egypt, they weren't slaves. They were the only ones who were not enslaved, even though they were there for 210 years with their brothers who were all enslaved. What? They didn't have to go through anything? No, but they learned Torah b'koach all the time. So as a result of that, they saw Hashem and everything, so they were never slaves. So that's what we're learning. Learning Torah b'koach brings you humility. Humility brings you the experience of Hashem in your life. And then we said, once you have that and you come to pray with that, you make a mark on Hashem's heart when you pray. And He answers every single one of those prayers. And this is the whole ikar of the lesson. Why is Hashem not answering your prayers that you've been praying for weeks, for months, for years? Because they're not coming from a place of humility. And they're not coming from a place of looking to find Hashem in your life. They're coming for you to look to further your physical state. Ask to be close to Hashem. Hashem is going to answer that prayer. And when He answers that prayer, you're going to get the rest of it also. But it won't even matter then because you're going to have everything. Okay? This is what we did so far. So now listen to what Rav Nachman says. And Yaakov, he is the concept of the seichel. The seichel is the inner wisdom. He is the light of the Ein Sof in everything. Meaning, whenever you find Hashem in your life, because you're being humble, what are you experiencing? You're experiencing Yaakov, Emet, truth. The truth is Hashem is there. That's the truth. The light of the Ein Sof is Emet, truth. That is Yaakov. Give Emet to Yaakov. So when you are able to perceive through your humility where Hashem is in everything in your life, what you're perceiving is really Yaakov Avinu. That's why we're going to learn in a moment. Yosef saw Yaakov's face. Because Yaakov's face is the seichel, is the chokhmah, is the light of Hashem within a difficult situation. That is Yaakov itself. That's his face. Al ken zachal lechen. And therefore Yaakov married Chen. So now we understand that Yaakov represents chokhmah. Chokhmah is the ability to experience where Hashem is for you at every moment in your life, to be able to feel and to be able to tangibly taste the light of Hashem within your learning, within your praying, within your relationships. That light, that clarity is called Yaakov. That's called seichel, understanding. Now, listen to what Rav Natan says. When did he marry Chen? When do we have a pasuk that said he got Chen, or is Rabbi Nachman just teaching us a Kabbalistic secret? So we're going to see in a second there's an explicit pasuk that Yaakov got Chen from Hashem. When did he get it? So listen to what Rav Natan says. After the whole issue with Esav over the birthright, which we're going to talk about in a minute, now Rivka, Yaakov's mother, said that he has to leave and go find a wife by her brother Lavan. As he's going to Lavan's home, the sun set early. That's what the pasuk says. The sun set early. Why do you need the Torah to teach you that? There's not a letter in the Torah that is not absolutely fundamentally necessary. Why do I need to know that the sun set early when Yaakov went there? Rav Natan says the sun represents chokhmah, the ability to be able to understand why Hashem is doing what he's doing to you. When the sun set early, Hashem was telling Yaakov, you're not going to be able to understand what's going to happen at Lavan's house. It's amazing. What happened at Lavan's house? He went to go marry Rachel. He ended up getting married to the wrong person. And then he had to work 7 years for that person. And then he had to work another 7 years for Rachel. So he was there for 14 years with both of them. And then he had to stay longer after that. 20 years he was in Lavan's house. Does that make sense? That he kept changing his wages, that every single day, even though Yaakov was Tom and he was simple and he just did whatever he could do, he was honest in business, he was the archetype of this. And Lavan kept screwing him over every single day. And Hashem said to him before that, you're not going to understand why this is good for you, any of it. So Rav Natan, what did he explain that the sun going down meant? He was telling Yaakov, even though your nature and your koach is to be able to see me in everything, you're not going to be able to do that now. So what are you going to have to do? Rav Natan says you're going to have to remove your mind, remove your attempt to understand where Hashem is, and rely on emunah pashuta, to rely on simple faith. Faith is when you don't understand, that you still trust that this is from Hashem, and that allows you to get a deeper understanding later on. So now, because of that, he merited Chaim. How do we see this? Chaim is Chokhmah. That is Yaakov. So he has that. That's his nature. He is the letter Chet. Now, all of a sudden, he goes to Lavan's house, and he's not going to be able to understand what happens. He doesn't have Chaim yet. Why? Because you need a nun. What's nun? That you take your mind and place it on the side, and you trust Hashem, that this is good for you, even though you don't experience where Hashem is in your life. Then, because he did that, he got the nun as well. And now it says in the pasuk that Hashem gave him Chaim. Ki chanani Elokim, because Elokim gave me Chaim. Now listen to this. I've gotten some phone calls and from texts from certain people recently, and even just speaking to others. And there's a similar theme which is coming across in all of those conversations. Something I've experienced very deeply in my life, and this is so important. So please listen to what I'm about to tell you. Why did Hashem, even though the essence of Yaakov was perfect, that he could see Hashem in everything, why didn't he let him just do that his whole life and teach everyone how to do that? Why, in the most vulnerable moment of his life, does he tell him to completely transcend his nature? Even though your nature is great, even though your nature is the essence of being a Jew, Rav Nachman says, now I want you to do the opposite of that. I want you to stop looking for me, and I want you to trust me. So I want to bring you back to Bereshit, okay? Hashem said, I made man in my image. The Rambam says in Halakha, he has no image. So we have an issue. He made us in his image. He has no image. What image did he make us in? So I heard, so beautiful, I wish I could tell you the Rabbi said, I don't know who said it, but I heard from someone that this Rav said it, and it was a beautiful, beautiful answer. He said, the image that he gave us is that we don't have an image. That's our image. That we have no limits. That no matter what our nature is, we can transcend that nature and access a part of ourselves that's not even a part of ourselves. That's what it means that Hashem created man with Hashem's image. And Adam, when it says Adam, Chazal teaches Adam means Jews. Meaning the Jew has the ability to kick into and to tap into and to experience a part of himself he didn't even know was a part of himself, and he has to. That is your whole life's work. So many of us have good things about us. So many of us are kind. So many of us are giving. So many of us are patient. But others of us, we struggle with anger. We struggle with sadness. We struggle with selfishness. Everyone has their natural positive tendencies and their natural negative tendencies. Now, you think that what Hashem wants for you is that you take your good and remove your bad. And really, what Hashem wants from you ultimately is to take your good, accentuate it, and then once you do that, He wants you to completely transcend your nature and to reach godliness in an area that you are not holding on at all. Rav Nachman says elsewhere in Likutey Moharan that wherever you struggle the most, that is your greatest spiritual power in potential. Let's say you struggle with anger. That means that in potential, you have the ability to experience the deepest inner peace in your life. You're going to say, but I have never experienced anything like that. In fact, I see everyone else has that. I have nothing like that. Your whole mission here is not simply to become your good self. It is to completely transcend the part of you that even if you think is good. Where do we see this clearly? Who's the first Jew? Avraham Avinu. Avraham was the nicest, most loving human being that ever lived, the kindest man who ever lived. He was called Ish Chesed. He was the essence of a kind, loving person. And at the pinnacle of his life, which Hashem was actually bringing him to for 100 years to experience this, that he would take all of that and place it on the side and sacrifice the son he was waiting for his whole life. Why would Hashem do that? And the answer is because Abraham was created with no image. That even though Abraham's nature was to be the greatest person ever in terms of loving kindness, Hashem wanted to show him you also have Gevurah. You can also completely have godliness on the opposite side of the spectrum. Yaakov Avinu, he goes to Lavan's house. He said, yeah, you learned in Shem and Aver's yeshiva for years, and you acquired this ability to see me in everything. Now I want you to completely flip that and move that on the side. Somebody I spoke to yesterday, I'm not going to tell you who he is. He was telling me, I went to go do Hippolyte, and I started to get calls from all these people. And I felt the need to answer them because I need to help them. I need, they texted me and said, I need you, this and that. So he ended up not being able to do his Hippolyte with Yishuv Dad because he was constantly answering his phone. Now, what was his nature telling him? His nature is good. His nature is so good. If the whole world had this nature, that would be incredible. We would have peace. But Hashem wants that person to transcend his nature, to get to a point that he can actually put limits on himself and trust Hashem. That's transcending that nature. Let's say, for instance, we know that there's a lot of people now who have feelings towards the same sex. That even though the Torah says that this is a sore, and because it's not good for you, the Ramban actually explains it's not just because Hashem doesn't like it. He explains in very deep, very understandable Kabbalistic ways why it's simply just not good. It's just not good for you. It's not good for the universe. It's not good spiritually. But you see, so many in our people are struggling with this. And I remember when I was a secular Jew, I didn't understand. I remember when I first started to learn and I started to get into and connect to certain concepts, but I couldn't understand how Hashem could make a person who desires to be with the same sex, and Hashem says, don't do that. That has to be the hardest test. And so I didn't believe it. And I remember somebody came over to me and he told me, David, listen, there are parts about Judaism that you really connect to, right? I said, yeah, very, very much so. And he said, you're really struggling with this. You don't believe this at all. I said, yeah, that's right. It doesn't make any sense to me. He said, okay, what I want you to do, I want you to take that doubt. I don't want you to forget about it. I don't want you to forget about it forever and to leave it. I just want you to place it on the side for a second. Because you see something very beautiful here. And you don't understand this one thing. Don't disregard it. But why should that one thing get in the whole way of you experiencing everything you've been looking for? Put it on the side. And in a few years, come back and try and deal with it. And I did that. And I know the answer now. The answer is that every person, no matter what their issue is, no matter what their taiva is, no matter what their thing is, Hashem wants you to transcend that. That is your godliness. That is your greatness. That's what Rabbeinu is trying to teach us to do. That at times we need to be looking for Hashem in everything, and maybe that's easy for you, or maybe that's hard for you. then you're going to have to figure out how to do that. And if it's easy for you, he's going to want you to take your mind and just to place it on the side and to rely on him and to trust in him, which is the hardest thing for that person to do. Everybody has their test. But when you pass that test, you get chen. And now all of your prayers get answered. Now listen to what the Be'ibi Hanachal says. He is a famous Perush on Likutey Moharan. And he says, let's see how practical this Torah is in Yaakov's experience when he goes to Lavan. He goes to Lavan's house. And after years there, and he finally gets married to Rachel and Leah, and he has many children there, and he finally gives birth to Yosef, who's the real reason he actually went there to begin with, from Hashem's perspective, was to give birth to Yosef, to marry Rachel. And now Hashem says, go to the land of Israel, go home. What is that called, that Hashem speaks to you? That's called Chokhmah. Whenever you experience Hashem in your life, that's called the Chokhmah. So when Hashem appeared to Yaakov, that was called Yaakov experiencing the Chokhmah of that situation. How did he get the Chokhmah of that situation? Because he first removed his mind when he went to Lavan's house, because Hashem hinted to him to. So he first humbled himself by removing his intellect. Then he got to hear Hashem speak to him to tell him to go home. And then what happens is he's going to Esav on the way back. Esav is now coming for him. He finds out. And Esav's coming to kill him with 400 men. What does Yaakov do? He again puts aside his understanding, his chokhmah, what Hashem just said to him. And he came to Hashem and he said, Hashem, help me. Protect me from Esav. What did he do there? Pray, learn, pray. Rav Nachman said that the Litvak say, learn, learn, learn. And the Hasidim say, pray, pray, pray. I say, pray, learn, pray. What did he mean? He means that the key to experiencing grace in your words, that those get answered, which is the key to everything, because that's how all your prayers get answered. That's what we all need, is to pray, learn, pray. To nullify your mind, to experience the light of the Ein Sof. To nullify your mind, to experience the light of Hashem. To nullify your mind, to experience the light of Hashem. To continually go back and forth between these modes. In the 6th Torah of Likutey Moharan, he's going to call this Baki Shov and Baki Ratzo. To be expert in running and returning. That you need to become an expert in both of these things. Because you're going to constantly going back and forth between this. Why? Because every single aliyah, every single ascent needs a descent. The ascent is called the Chokhmah. The descent is called the Malchut, the Nun, removing your mind on the side. Now, the goal is not to only have Chokhmah or only to have Malchut. It's not only to be able to experience the light of Hashem and to be able to believe in Hashem, but to be able to know when and where to apply both. That is physically manifested by you going back and forth between praying and learning and praying and learning and praying and learning. And that's the reason why we do that. By the way, just practically, this is a very good piece of advice. Right before you pray, learn some Chassidus for a few minutes. Just the first few sentences. Just to give you some chokhmah. Now go pray. You'll see that prayer is very different. And then after you pray, go learn a little bit again. You'll see your mind is expanded. Why? Because you just nullified yourself in your prayer. Now you're able to experience a deeper chokhmah. This is a mode of living, both in your learning and your praying and in your actual life. Now he says, Ba'alken berach et hashvatim bachen. Then once Yaakov merited chen, meaning he merited both Amunah and Chokhmah, he was then able to bless all of his children with it. So we see that the essence, like Rav Nachman says, of being a Jew is that you have chen, that you have grace, that you do pray, learn, pray, that you nullify your ego and you experience the light of the Ein Sof. This is what it means to be a Jew. Except he never blessed Benjamin. Benjamin lo haya'an. He didn't bless Benjamin. Why? Because he wasn't born at that time. Va'al ken berachu Yosef bechen. Therefore, Yosef blessed him with chen. There was not one of Yaakov's children that didn't end up getting chen, meaning they didn't. They all got that soul essence power of a Jew to pray, learn, pray. To nullify your ego and to experience the light of Hashem. To nullify your ego and to experience the light of Hashem. This is what it is to be a Jew. That means that all of our forefathers had it. That means that all of the Shvatim had it. Everyone had it. Yosef gave it to Benjamin. We're going to learn in a moment why Yosef was going to be able to do that, okay? But I want to just say an interesting thing, just a side note. How many men did Esav come with to Yaakov? 400 men. What's the gematria 400 equal? Tough, the letter tough. What did we say before? That Yaakov represents tough of life. The Torah, the tree of life. But we said that the Gemara in Shabbat says that the tough can either be life or it can be death, depending on if you're learning it with humility or not. If you learn it with humility, that's called Yaakov. If you learn it with a lack of humility, that's called Esav. That's called you die from it. Now notice, 400 men come to Yaakov, meaning the tough of death is coming to Yaakov. And how does Yaakov overcome it? How does Yaakov overcome the ego coming to him? He nullifies himself in prayer. Does everybody see the connection? It's so explicit in this. It's unbelievable, okay? And then, what happens to Esav? And this goes back to the beginning of the Torah. Not only does Esav not try and kill him, he hugged him and kissed him. So what is Rav Nachman teaching us? What did he say in the beginning of this Torah? The essence of a Jew is chen. But because we are not humble and we're not doing what Hashem made us to do, which is pray, learn, pray, now our essence, our chen, our grace goes to them, meaning to non-Jews, to Esav, meaning to your enemy, whoever is trying to interfere with your ability to be close to Hashem, whether that's financial issues, whether that is psychological issues, whether that is physical people who are interrupting in your ability to do so. That's all called Esav. But what happens when you have chen is not only do you have it, but you take it away from them. And not only do you take it away from them, then they assist you. Esav then assists you. 2,000 years ago, they're going to say, you know how the Jewish people, you'll know Mashiach is coming, that it's really time, that it's time for us to go back to the land of Israel when the non-Jews ask us to go back. So imagine for thousands of years, you would think that's the craziest thing. There's no chance at all that the Islamic or the Christian or the non-Jewish world is going to be begging us to go to the land of Israel. That's insane. That's never going to happen. What happened in the 40s after the Holocaust? The secular Jews, the Zionists, they came to the nations of the world and say, we're the only people that do not have a home, that for thousands of years we've been going from this place to this place to this place, not even for religious reasons. We need a place that we can simply be safe. And they chose a place in North Africa. And the nations of the world said, no, we have a better place for you. It's called the land of Israel, Palestine. You should go live there. That's insane. That's insane. What does that mean? It means it's time for us to get our chen back. And the Ramchal actually says that when we get there, we're not going to be religious. That when we get there, we're still not going to be connected to the inner light. We're only going to be connected to the external light, meaning the physical land. But in the end, we're going to actually also have the inner light illuminated as well, which is the soul. So right now, the Ramchal explaining what's happening now, and Rav Kook speaks a lot about this, that for the past 60 years, secular Jews have been building the land because only the external part of their souls have been illuminated by Hashem. And there's a deep reason for this. But in the end, the illumination within all of our souls is going to come out. And then we're going to have the land and pray, learn, pray. And then we're going to have Geula. We're going to have the whole thing. Why was Joseph the one who was able to give it to Benjamin? Why didn't one of the other sons? They all got chen from Yaakov. They all got humility the ability to pray and to get answered, and the ability to see Hashem in everything. Why was it only Yosef who gave it to Binyamin? Because it was specifically Yosef who was able to bless him with chen. Ki Yosef haya kalu bayoter mibchinat Yaakov. Because Yosef, more than anyone, embodied the essence of Yaakov. Where do we see this? That the pasuk says, "Ele todot Yaakov Yosef." These are the children of Yaakov, Yosef. What do you mean, Yosef? He had 12 sons. Say the rest of them. So Rashi immediately says that Yosef was just like his father. The Midrash says they had parallel lives. Esau was hated by his brother. Yosef was hated by his brothers. And the Midrash goes through multiple parallels of Yaakov and Yosef, that they lived literally parallel lives, except Yosef did it on a more intense scale within Mitzrayim, okay? But now he's going to bring it even deeper, because it's not just that they happened to live similar parallel lives, but they actually had very similar soul roots. Because now Rav Nachman says, Ki hu haya ikar todotav. It's not just that he was his child, he was just like him, he was the essence of his children. Meaning, Yaakov gave birth to Yosef. He was his progeny. He was not just his physical progeny, he was his spiritual progeny. That the life work of Yaakov gave birth to Yosef. Ki Yaakov and Yosef kechada chashivei. Because it says in the Zohar that they were like one. What does it bring there? If you look at the letter Vav, how is Vav spelled? Vav, Vav. So now the Zohar says there that the first initial Vav, which is a big Vav, represents Yaakov, and the small Vav represents Yosef. That they both represent the same letter in the Torah, the Vav, which represents truth, the ability to see Hashem in everything. Yosef was a smaller version than Yaakov, but he was a more realized version than his father. That's why he's called the tzaddik, and we're going to get to that in a moment. However, these are the chronicles, meaning Yaakov and Yosef are one. And therefore, only Yosef can go over the blessing of chen. Now tonight, it's very interesting. Why? Tonight is Yesod of Yesod. Hashgacha Pratit, that tonight is the essence of Yosef, which is chen, which is the ability to see Hashem in everything and to be humble and to get his prayers answered. This is what we have the ability now to connect to. It's from Yosef. Now, I just want to give you an interesting side note that you should know. There's an even deeper connection between Yaakov and Yosef. I was thinking about today in my bed when I took a nap. What is the gematria of Yosef? 156. Okay? We just said that Yosef is represented by the letter Vav. Vav equals 6, right? 6 times what equals 156? 26. Hashem's name, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei times 6 equals Yosef. That's what Yosef's name equals. Now, we just said that Yaakov was greater than Yosef though, right? Yosef, he epitomized him, but in a smaller way. In a more realized way, but in a smaller way. What's the gematria of Yaakov? Add 26 to 156. Add another of Hashem's name to Yosef's name, and you get Yaakov. So what do we do here? We're saying that 26 times 6, Yud Kei Vav Kei times 6 is Yosef. Add another Yud Kei Vav Kei and you get Yaakov. So you see very clearly that they're one, they're Chad. And not only are they one, but their essence is Hashem. They see Hashem in everything. That is their connection between them. That is the birthright that Yaakov gave to Yosef. That he was able to see Hashem in everything. That is the Chochmah. And therefore it said about Yosef, that the firstborn of his shore, of his ox, Hadar is his, grandeur, majesty is his. Now Rashi says there, who is he speaking about? What is this talking about? What does that have to do with Yosef? Why was that his blessing to Yosef? That Yosef is the essence of Yaakov, and he's going to be the spiritual leader of the Jewish people. He's the tzaddik. And you compared him to an ox. And you're going to say how beautiful that's going to be for him. So Rashi says there that was a prophecy, that he was alluding to the son of Yosef, which would be Ephraim, that the son of Ephraim, which would be Yoshua ben Nun. That Yoshua ben Nun, through this blessing, that he is the ox that's going to bring the Jewish people into the land of Israel. And the Vilna Gaon explains that Yoshua is Mashiach ben Yosef. So what is his ability that allows us to get into the land of Israel? What is it about Yosef or Mashiach ben Yosef or Yoshua that brings us into the land? The answer is Bechor Sharo. He has the Bechor. He's the firstborn, meaning he's able to see Hashem in everything. That's what's going to allow him to overcome all evil in the world and to bring the Jews back to the land of Israel, because he's able to see Hashem within the darkness. That's the koach of Yosef. That's the koach of Yoshua. Like Rav Nachman says, Bechor is the concept of Chochmah, to be able to see Hashem in everything. That's what Yaakov was telling Yosef. This is going to be your thing, and this is going to be given to Ephraim, and this is going to be given to Yoshua, who's going to be the redeemer of the Jewish people. V'zehu shoro. And this word shoro, the ox, Rav Nachman says he was hinting to the Aramaic version of this as well, because the word shor in Hebrew, in Aramaic, refers to histaklut, the ability to be able to gaze intensely. What does it mean to gaze intently? What do you do when you go like this? You're trying to look deeply into something. That's called looking for the chokhmah in it. What does it mean, Bechor Shoro? You're going to be able to see Hashem in everything. Why? Because of your ability to look deeply for Hashem in everything, like Yaakov did. And Yosef all the more so because he went through deeper darkness. And he, even in that darkness, he was going to be able to always look for Yaakov. And that's why when he was seduced by Potiphar, which was the most difficult test that there was, he was able to see his father's face, meaning he was able to gaze. He was able to look for Hashem in that moment, and through that to be able to overcome Esav, which was the sexual temptation, because we know that Esav represents the left side of spiritual negativity, which we're going to speak in the next Torah, Likutey Moharan, which represents the side of taiva for sexuality. That was Yosef's special ability that Yaakov didn't have. Even though Yaakov never wasted seed, he never was tested by Esav to do so. Yosef, though, was. And even though Yosef had an even greater taiva for it, like Rav Nachman teaches, the greater your taiva for it, the greater is your ability to overcome it. How did he do it? By looking for Hashem in that moment, by looking for Yaakov's face, by looking for the chokhmah in it. Bechor Shoro, that you're going to have the firstborn of the ox, to be able to gaze intently. The ability to gaze and to be able to see the seichel and everything. And again, why is Yosef able to do this? Because he's humble. Because at the moment of the difficulty, he stops trying to understand and he throws it on the side. Like when Nachman says elsewhere in the Likutey Moharan, what is the essence of a tzaddik? To be like Yosef is to be humble, meaning to stop trying to understand. And by not trying to understand, that's called praying. You're going to be able to learn. That's called understanding. Pray, learn, pray. And then Yosef is able to overcome all tests, even to waist seed, which is the most difficult test, according to Rav Nachman. V'zehu hadarlo, and this was his beauty. Tirgum Onkelos, because what does Onkelos said? Zivle, Lashon Or. Grandeur comes from the word radiance or illumination or or. And what did Rav Nachman teach us earlier in the Torah? Illumination is to be able to palpably experience the revelation of the light of God in your life. That you experience Hashem within your relationships, within your workplace, within yourself, within your prayer, within your learning. That is called Hadar. That is called your illumination. So the whole bracha is that Yaakov is giving to Yosef the ability to see Hashem deeply in everything, because through that and through Yosef's special ability to overcome sexual taiva, he is going to be the Mashiach ben Yosef. And he's going to save all the Jewish people and bring us to the land of Israel. And all because of Bechor, firstborn, Chochmah, Shoro, his ability to be able to see that. Hadarlo, that's his beauty. That's his illumination. That's his light. You guys hear Rav Nachman saying? You're never going to see Torah like this anywhere, by the way. This is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Like he said before, what's the whole purpose of the seichel, of the chokhmah, of the illumination of Hashem in your life? What's the purpose of trying to look for it in everything? Because then you're going to know how to get closer to Him. That is the point of your life. That's the point of your life. It is not money. It is not beauty. It is not anything except to be close to Hashem. That's the point of this world. That's why your soul was dropped down into this very dark world, because this is the only place that you can find Hashem in the deepest way possible. And to be able to understand that requires that you throw your mind on the side completely and to be like the nun, to be like the moon that has no light of its own, which Rav Nachman says elsewhere, the concept of Yoshua. Yosef. Yasod Sheba Yasod. And through that, Yosef was able to understand dreams. What's going to happen when someone learns Rav Nachman's Torah? They're going to be like, oh yeah, Breslov's really nice. Sounds great, except without da'at. You don't know anything though, right? You're not going to be able to know anything. Why? Because you're being simple. You're being ignorant. Rav Nachman is not trying to make you ignorant. Rav Nachman was the genius of all geniuses. He wants you also to be a genius. You know how you become a genius? By throwing away your limited mind so you can experience the unlimited mind of Hashem. Again, Rav Nachman wants you to throw away your limited mind so you can experience the light, the unlimited light and consciousness of the Ein Sof. That was Yosef. You know why he was brilliant? Because he put his mind on the side. He didn't say to Hashem, why are you doing this to me? He said, Hashem, where are you here? I know you're here. I believe you're here. I trust you're here. And then because of that, he was able to interpret dreams. And in some ways, Rav Ginsburg explains, he was even wiser than Solomon Melech, who the Torah says was the smartest person ever lived. Why? Humility. Humility. And then he says, and even though Yosef was then thrown into a place that was dark, that was obscure, that you couldn't see the light of Hashem at all, he still was able to find the chokhmah there. Why? Because he threw his mind completely on the side. That the Midrash says that when he was in jail, even though his whole life was thrown to shambles, that nothing was working out for him at all. He wasn't married, he didn't have kids, he wasn't with his family, he was in a foreign country, he was a slave, he was a servant. What was the Midrash says he was doing in jail? He was dancing and singing. Are you insane? How do you do that? How are you happy in jail like that? How have you not gone to complete despair? The answer is that Yosef didn't try to understand what was happening. He threw his mind on the side, not because he wasn't brilliant, he was, but he understood from his father. The only way to experience the light of Hashem in the darkness is to throw your mind on the side and ask Hashem, I just want to be close to you. I know you're here. And then you're able to find Hashem in everything. And what is the point of that? Only the whole point of your life. To use that chokhmah, to be able to use that point that you just found, that Hashem is there, to now get closer to Him. Another step closer, another step closer, another step closer. Until you're on the golden mountain in the pearl castle. And you find the lost princess. Any questions from tonight's class? You should have questions. You should have a lot of questions. Was that how Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai survived in the cave? Wow! What a chiddush. I love it. Sounds like it, no? How can you survive in a cave for 12 years, which is so dark that you can't leave the cave? You know what they used to do? A lot of people don't know this. He wanted to make sure he had nice clothes for davening. How are you going to maintain nice clothes if you're wearing them and you don't know how long you're going to get out of there for? So what did they used to do in the cave? They used to bury themselves in the sand and take their clothes off so they were covered according to halakha. And they would learn Torah for 12 years like that. And then when they went to go pray, they put their clothes on. They went back under the sand. How are you able to even think to do such a thing and not just cry hysterically that Hashem ruined your life? Throw it on the side. Just throw it on the side. Not so you can be ignorant, so that you could be like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and come out of the cave with the deepest chokhmahs that was ever revealed in the world. The chokhmahs that was going to bring redemption to the whole world. Someone asked me for a summary of the whole class.
I have a question.
Let's get the other question first. Yeah, go ahead.
Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Nachaman, are they anyhow alike?
So we learned in the introduction that it sounds like Rabbi Nachman was hinting to the fact that he was a Gilgul of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So it sounds like he's more connected to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And the Arizal explains that they came from different sides of the Sfirot. That Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai came from the right side of the Sfirot, came from the side of Chesed, the side of love. That's why his students all loved each other, and that's why he was able to draw down these deepest secrets. And that Rabbi Akiva actually came from the side of Gevura, and all of his students were sparks of his soul, and that's why all 24,000 of them died, because their Gevura was too intense, and therefore they couldn't love each other. Okay? So it sounds like, and by the way, I forgot to say this in that first class, and it was in the Perush, and it's like the most mind-blowing part, I forgot it, that the Gematria of Nachman ben Simcha, which was his father, and Shimon Bar Yochai is exactly the same. It's 501. What does the Gematria of 501 equal? Rosh, the head. What's that great song that they have? Rosh Bnei Yisrael. What does Rabbi Nachman says elsewhere in Likutey Moharan? That is an acronym for Rebbe. The Rebbe, the Tzaddik Yisod Olam. So who's the Rosh? Rabbeinu. Who's the Rosh? Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. They're the head. That's Yosef, by the way. He also was the head.
A conceptual idea because he's like the founder of Zohar, which is like Chokhmah.
Yes, he was the founder of the Zohar, which is definitely Chokhmah. That is the deepest Chokhmah that we have. And yeah. And therefore, what are we going to need? Because if that's the case, it sounds like this is a Mashiach ben Yosef type figure. That Rabbeinu's Torah can get us to Eretz Yisrael. Not just physically, but also spiritually. To be living in that land of inner peace. To be living in that land of complete Amunah. So, this is what this whole first Torah is trying to get us to. To be living in the land of Israel. Not just physically, also spiritually. That you can experience Hashem in everything in your life. That's why the Gemara says, to be in the land of Israel, it's like you have a God. And to be outside of the land, it's like you don't have a God. Because when you're in the mindset of looking for Hashem in everything in your life, that's called being in the land. And when you're out, it's called you're being outside. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question, I think. So there's one aspect of Yaakov that's looking for Hashem in everything and finding Hashem in everything, right? That was one of the strong suits. But then Hashem tells him to stop doing that and just have faith.
Right.
So aren't we though supposed to try, isn't like, you might have said this in one of your other classes, but aren't we supposed to try to find Hashem in everything and find his chokhmah in everything, good or bad? So yes. How do you reconcile that?
Beautiful. That's the whole Torah. You ready? Rav Nachman's teaching you there's a time for this and there's a time for that. And even the time for that is really the time for this. Meaning, the goal is always to be close to Hashem. Sometimes you can understand how to, and sometimes you can only believe how to. Meaning, sometimes you can actually see where Hashem is. So he's not explaining this now, but that's called mochin the gadlut. When you have expanded consciousness, he's going to speak about it elsewhere. When you're able to easily perceive where Hashem is in your life. Like, let's say, for instance, let's say you were struggling with something and you got the answer to that in this class. Let's say, B'ezrat Hashem, that happened to some of you tonight, okay? So that's called mochin the gadlut. Hashem gave you a chokhmah. That's called Yaakov. That's great. Go run with that, okay? Now, what happens though, after the class, all of a sudden, you get an email from your boss, he says you're fired, okay? So in that moment, your emotions are gonna be too intense in the moment. And what's going to be forcing itself on you is not your soul, but is your ego, because your ego is going to be wondering, how am I going to support my family? Why would Hashem do this to me? Where is Hashem in my life right now? I'm trying so hard to be learning Torah every night and be applying Rabbi Nachman's wisdom. And David says it's going to save my life. And now all of a sudden I just got fired from my job. So Rav Nachman says in that moment, don't try and figure out where Hashem is in your life. Talk to Hashem. Nullify yourself to Hashem. Say to Hashem, Hashem, I don't understand at all how this is good for me. But I know, even though I don't understand it, that just like you gave me the good I just had before, you're also the cause of me getting fired right now. You must also be here. And Rav Nachman says it even a deeper way. Help me to find how you're here in my life right now. And then through that, you come back to getting actually closer to Hashem. Did that make sense?
Yeah, so basically just don't, continue looking for Hashem, but don't let the negative event or whatever that happened make you kind of start doubting Hashem. Or
even more than that, there's like two modes, like throughout your day. Like you should be working on throughout the day. I'm only doing these two things. I'm either looking for Hashem deeply in my life, which is called learning Torah, physically learning, and also just spiritually learning, meaning I'm looking for Hashem, that's called Torah. And then when I can't understand the piece that I'm reading, or I don't understand why my wife is giving me a hard time, or I don't understand why my kids are not healthy. So all of those things are called, I don't understand the piece that I'm reading. Now is not the time to learn that. Now is the time to pray. Pray means nullification of self. Now, because I start to feel that I don't understand, at the moment that you feel you can't, stop trying. Don't stay there. Give it back up to Hashem. Say, Hashem, I'm giving myself up to you. I nullify myself to you. I know that this is the best possible thing I could be experiencing right now. Please help me to see why. That's called selflessness. And then, Bezrat Hashem, the sooner that you do that, the sooner Hashem will reveal to you why that was good for you and where Hashem was in that. That's called a new Chochmah. And now you're closer to Hashem than you were even before the fight. And you keep going back and forth your whole life like this. But what happens when you try and understand when you can't? What happens when you stay in the mode of Yaakov even though you're going to Laban's house? What happens when you, even though right before you got fired up and you felt like you saw Hashem in that Likutey Moharan class, and all of a sudden now you have family issues right after this, and you try and understand where Hashem is right now. Hashem, why are you doing this to me? This is the wrong time for that. This is the time that you nullify what you just understood, and you simply trust that Hashem knows better than you, and that Hashem is in this moment with you, and that this is actually better for you than if this didn't happen. And ask Hashem, please, I'm nullifying myself to you, I'm humbling myself to you. Let me see how you're in here, because I know this is going to bring me closer to you. That's called pray, learn, pray. Does that make sense? Is that a little bit more clear?
Yep.
Okay, great questions.
Question? Another one?
Before you have another question, a few people are asking about how you can help the project, okay? Again, you guys know I'm not comfortable with talking about money at all. This is part of my nature that I have to break as well. We're a very young, 3-week-old company who, based on complete Mesirat Nefesh and belief in the truth of this and belief in the redemptive quality of this for not just the people who are watching, but for all the Jewish people and for all of the world, a lot of us have left behind our jobs to put ourselves and to create Zion and to try and spread these teachings far and wide. Therefore, we don't have a lot of resources right now. And everything that we have, we're giving to you, okay? The more that we have, the more we can do. You know, even though we're just doing classes right now, we want to eventually have a physical makom, a place where the light of these Torahs are going to go shine forth to hundreds of people. We want to take this from here and bring it to the land of Israel as well. We want to make it international. We want to have the whole world to know what the power of a tzaddik in your life is, to have inner peace, to be living in the land of Israel no matter where you're living. And we have a lot of great ideas, but those ideas are going to require that we have a lot more financial assistance than we have right now. So if anybody wants to help and believes in this and has already tasted for just a couple of weeks that this is real, that this is genuine, that you're not being sold something, that you feel that there's hope in this, or you've already seen the benefits of it. Let's say you've been learning with me for the past few years this, and you see how much it's affected you. So it would be great if you would help. My email, the email of the company, it's sionbreslavproject@gmail.com. And that's also the Chase Quick Pay that you can just put in that email and help us if you can. It's definitely considered maaser. And when we learn later on, we're going to learn that it's considered attachment to the tzaddik, which increases your ability to be shmirat habrit, which increases your ability to see the chokhmah and everything, which increases your ability to have all the blessings that Rabbi Nachman wants to give you from Hashem, okay? So quick summary, and then we're going to head off, okay? Actually, Jack, you have a question? Jason?
Yeah.
Jacko?
No, I basically have a little bit off topic, but really on topic question. Rabbi Nachman, does he bring down a way of how the Beit HaMikdash will appear or come down from the Shemayim, or what's his take?
Are you asking because you've heard it before? Because it's the most amazing chiddush he has.
I've never heard before. I've heard that I said myself it'll appear. My cousin told me it'll come from fire. So I don't know.
Okay. You should know I love you. You're a beautiful soul, okay? I appreciate all your questions.
Thank you.
So listen. There is a huge stira that the Jewish world is dealing with for 1,000 years now, which is this stira, and this has nothing to do with this, what we're talking about, but has everything to do with this, like you just said. So listen what the Yesod of the Yesod says. Listen to what the Tzaddik says. The Rambam says in Halacha, the Jewish people are going to build the third Beit HaMikdash. We're going to build it. We are going to physically all go to the land of Israel and build this third building like we built the first two. That makes sense. That's very practical. Okay, good. We have an issue though, because Rashi, who is the most famous commentator on the Torah, and everything he says on the Torah is true, and he says not like that. Rashi says Hashem is going to build the third Beit HaMikdash, and it's going to come down from Shemayim fully built. So that's a problem. Because Rashi says Hashem's going to build it, and the Rambam says we're going to build it. So it can't be both. Rabbi Nachman says it's both. How is it both? So even though this is actually for another Torah, we'll just say it now because of the question that you asked, and because it's just such an amazing answer. Rabbi Nachman in Kabbalah explains that every brick in the Beit HaMikdash is created by the prayers of the Jewish people over the course of the exile. That every heartfelt prayer that you pray creates another brick in the building. And when all of the prayers are gathered together and we've hit that, so to speak, tipping point, then the building has all of the pieces and Hashem is going to bring the whole thing down whole. Meaning, Rabbi Nachman says, Rambam's right, we're going to build it through our prayers. And then Hashem is going to take all of our prayers and he's going to use all of those bricks to build the Beit HaMikdash, which is the house of prayer, and bring it down, and that's the redemption, and that's the Geula.
Amen.
It's Moshe, right? All our prayers, our gold or silver, and he was one of the people.
Benny, I can't hear you. Can you speak a little louder?
Moshe, he was the one who took our gold and silver and all those things, and meaning our prayers, and he built the mission for us, right?
That's right. So yeah, in that Torah, Rav Nachman's going to explain that even though Hashem's the one who does it, he really gives it over to Moshe to do it. Meaning, there is a tzaddik who's not physically here right now, who's taking the prayers of all the Jewish people and building the Mishkan above with Hashem's help. And then Hashem's going to bring it down here for us. So yes, it's our prayers, it's our mitzvot, it's everything. But specifically in Kabbalah, they explain it's the prayers that are building the Beit HaMikdash, because it's the house of prayer. It's built by our prayers. So every time you pray and you're wondering, why isn't Hashem doing anything? It's putting another brick in the Beit HaMikdash. That prayer that you don't keep praying that you don't feel like is getting answered, you could be building the entire Beit HaMikdash that we all need. Okay?
By the way,
Quick.
that's why that third Beit HaMikdash is going to be humongous, because the exile is longer than the actual time, like we were in Eretz.
Nice.
At least
I like it.
Man.
Nice.
The measurements I heard from the Parshim.
Yeah, they're bigger. That's true. Very nice. Beautiful.
Very big.
Beautiful, Abraham. So, quick summary, and then we're going to head off. And then tomorrow night is women's class. So tell, if it's kosher in a kosher way, tell women. If it's not, don't tell them. And just pray that they should show up somehow. And then Thursday night is the final Likutey Moharan men's class for the week, okay? So please show up for that. This is the summary for tonight's class. The reason you're not getting your prayers answered is because you're not humble. The reason you're not humble is because you're not learning Torah even though you don't feel like it. Or because you're not learning Torah with simcha. Or because you're not learning Torah with a loud voice. If you learn Torah with a loud voice, with joy, and especially when you don't want to, that sheds the ego. It nullifies the ego. And then when you come to pray, you're not going to come to pray in a way of ego, of complaining, but you're going to come to Hashem to ask to be close to Him. And because it's coming from a genuine place, Rav Nachman says that prayer is going to get answered every time. The whole reason prayers don't get answered is because they don't have grace. Grace comes from humility. That is the grace of a Jew. Humility means, I don't know why you're doing what you're doing to me, but I believe it's for the best for me, and I'm asking to find you in this event. Through that, you get your prayers answered. Done. Everybody, have a great night, and I'll see you guys Thursday night. Zot Hashem.